friends, welcome back to my channel. I have a bunch of products to share with you that frankly I just regret buying. For a number of reasons, they are being kicked out of my collection. Much like you guys saw me doing in 2019, I've really been trying to scrutinize my makeup collection, and in 2020 I had some very clear categories of makeup that I wanted to focus on more aggressively, and I kicked off the year with a bang, and I've really been scrutinizing those areas, and now I have a number of products to share with you that I'm just getting rid of that for a variety of reasons don't work for me. So we're gonna go ahead and start first with the drugstore shadows that I am getting rid of. As you guys have heard me talk about, I wanted to, in 2019, go through really all of my eyeshadows. My plan was to go through both my larger palettes and go through all of the drugstore, like quads and trios and other kinds of eyeshadow palettes that I had, and I didn't realize how long it was going to take me to scrutinize just my eyeshadow palettes alone, so I never got to touching the drugstore ones. So this year, I decided that I was going to make that one of my primary focus areas. So I have a couple from Wet n Wild. I have two of the trios. I have this one which is on Cloud 9, and it's basically a blue and brown trio. And I've got the Cool as a Cucumber, which is like a purpley brown green type of trio. I distinctly remember buying these. First off, they were discounted by like half, I think, so they were maybe $1, $1.50. They weren't super expensive, and I was at a point where I wanted to start exploring eyeshadow more, but I wasn't someone who was at that point turning towards more expensive, higher end eyeshadow, and I figured like these could be some fun colors. Shockingly, I never really pulled them out to play with them because of the brighter colors. Now at this point in what I'm going to call my makeup journey, I do feel more comfortable with colors like this, but the pigmentation of these is just not super great. They don't read that great on, maybe it's just my skin tone, but they don't read that great. The pigmentation is just okay. I don't like these enough to want to pan them per se, and let's be clear, I don't plan on making my mentality be like, I'm only gonna keep this if I can pan it, because that is in no way realistic to how many eyeshadows I already own, but I at least want to like it enough that it would tempt me to want to pan it, if not actually pan it, and these just don't do that for me. So for those reasons, I definitely regret buying these. Next one that I am surprisingly saying goodbye to is the Kardashian Beauty Touchstones Gradient Eye Color Set in Echo. I believe they had more than one of these, but this is the one that I was drawn to. I did actually pan two of the shades in here, but when I went to pull this back out, I really thought I probably was going to keep this, because even on like these three shades, you can see that I've got some kind of dip happening here. I definitely have some, product worked through on this side, but I don't know if it's because of how old this is, or if just my relationship with eyeshadow has evolved in such a way that I can expect a lot more from my eyeshadow. But when I applied these on my eyes, they didn't really pack much of a punch, and then they didn't really have much for longevity. And I really want to be able to put on eyeshadow that is going to last me my entire day. I don't necessarily need it to be so in your face. Sometimes I do like a more subtle eye color, but if it can't last all day and it's subtle on top of it, it's just not going to work for me. So I'm finally going to part with this. It's not that heartbreaking, because I do have other light pink shades like this. I can definitely recreate this with what's in my current collection, but I really regret buying it, because the reality is, out of the two that I used up, the majority of this just didn't really jive, or doesn't really jive, with my current makeup preferences. Next one that I have is this Revlon Custom Eyes Naturally Glamorous in 20, which is basically just like a neutrals. It is this one long strip. I'm officially making it a rule that I will not buy eyeshadows that are just one pan of shadow with different shadows poured into it, because even if it doesn't have that much powdery pickup, it still is going to mesh into the other colors. And I immediately was noticing that as I was digging into this darker chocolatey color, it was already tainting this one. You can see when we get really close, like you can see, after just a couple of times this is already happening, let alone if I kept digging and digging. On top of that, the pigmentation is just okay. Again, I don't sincerely know how old this is. It's probably around, I'd say, at least the 5-year mark. So that's probably playing a role in its lack of pigmentation. But again, this is not a hard to come by color selection. So I don't feel the need to keep it in the drugstore version when I've got these other things I don't love about it. So again, I regret buying anything that has this sort of one brick of color, and I will not do that with future eyeshadow purchases. Then there is the CoverGirl, what is this called? Eyeshadow Blooming Blushes 720. It is this little quad, looks like this. I was really jazzed when I first got this, and I'd probably, I think, put it in a favorites video when I was still actually filming favorites videos, but I will say that I regret buying this for just a couple of reasons. One, it is not that different from what I have in my collection, and I know I own shadows that were like this already when I purchased this. So this was an unnecessary purchase. The second thing is that the shape of the eyeshadow pans, I really would never have thought about this back when I bought it, but I think I'm much more aware now that it's really hard to get my brushes in some of the little crevices of these pans. And the reality is the color that I like the most is this matte brown color. It has the best pigmentation. It blends the best out of all of them. And I have this color repeatedly represented in my shadow collection. So I do not need this, and it was totally foolish of me to purchase it. There are 2 lip products that I have assessed and decided that they are just not for me, and they are both from Jouer. And I don't necessarily regret purchasing them because I didn't actually seek them out and purchase them. They came in, I think, a mystery box or maybe a BoxyCharm. I'm not quite sure where I acquired both of them from, but I didn't actually go to the website and buy them. And this is sort of why I've stopped getting subscription boxes, even though they're very fun and I did enjoy them when I got them. The reality was 80% of what I was getting, I wouldn't have purchased on my own, and I wasn't discovering that I was loving those products and I just hadn't sought them out, and it was a mistake on my part, and oh, my life is so changed. So I stopped getting them, and a lot of what I've decluttered has been from those, and this is no exception. So I have the High Pigment Lip Gloss in Champs, which looks like this. This definitely looks like a color that I would have liked, but I feel like it's really drying on my lips. I'm not a big fan of it, and there are very few glosses I've met that I feel like are drying, and I feel like this particular color, it doesn't pull very well on my skin tone. I feel like my sister, this would look really good on her skin tone. She has a much less pinky complexion than I do, and so sometimes these kinds of colors like pull really well on her, but they're just not my jam. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this. And then I'm also getting rid of this lip topper in Saint Tropez. Reality is, I don't use lip toppers. I love the way they look. Like when I see people on YouTube apply them, I'm like, oh God, that looks so pretty. Your lips look so pretty. But in my everyday, I don't find myself being like, ooh, you know what I want? I want a lip topper. Like this will really pull the lip look together. Granted, I'm not a big lip person aside from lip gloss, but I was having one of those moments where I was like, do it, pull it out, see what it's like. And the coloring of this is really pretty. I mean, it's super intense. I will put it over the other swatch I just did so you guys can see. Like it really does make it like glittery and pretty and very dimensional, but the glitter in here is really textured. Like when I would rub my lips together, I would find that like I could feel the glitter like grinding like up against my lips. Like I really didn't like this. And so for that reason, texturally, I would go ahead and get rid of it. And again, I'm not sure I would have actually sought this out had it not come in that either Jouer mystery box or a BoxyCharm. The third category that I made a regret discovery in is with nail polish. I, as you guys know, really don't paint my fingernails. I haven't painted my fingernails consistently for probably 2 years at this point. So pretty much all the nail polish I use is for pedicures. And I went in recently to get a pedicure with this paparazzi. This is in the shade Bid You Adieu Blue. This is a very much of a blue-based gray. I really love colors like this. I think I have maybe a couple variations of this. I think I've got one from OPI, one from China Glaze. When 50 Shades of Grey was a really big thing, there were a lot of nail polish companies coming out with like shades of gray. And so I think on my birthday, I had like a free paparazzi nail polish, so I got this one. Let me tell you, this I would not recommend. I do not like this. I'm getting rid of it because it chipped. It chipped on my toenails. And I gotta tell you, rare is it that toenail polish chips. And I've had Sinful Colors, China Glaze, OPI, Julep. Like, I've had tons of different nail polish brands and they never chip. Like, the apocalypse could happen and my toenail polish would last the entire time. So for it to have chipped after maybe having my nails painted for a week, that to me says that it is not a good quality nail polish, and I can't even imagine what it would have done had it been on my fingernails, because I feel like polish on my fingernails chips so much faster. Even with like the best of the best top coat, the base coat, the best nail polish ever, it chips pretty quickly. So I don't think this would have lasted very well at all based on the way it behaved on my toes. So this is out of here. I would not recommend it, and I totally regret even getting it, even though it was free, because it was just wasteful to grab this. Another item that we are saying goodbye to, again, this is a shout out to why I don't get subscription boxes anymore. It is a liner. I really noticed when I was filming my inventory compared to 2019 to this year that I hadn't even touched my other type of liner category in the last year. Like, I hadn't really scrutinized it, hadn't made any gains in that area. So I immediately wanted to pull this out and use it. So I will tell you, back in high school, I was using like a liquid pen from CoverGirl because brown liquid liner was really hard to find, and that was the only one I could find, and it worked for the job. But as I started to like discover Sephora and higher end makeup, I became obsessed with I think it was the Sephora brand brown. It was like a black brown gel potted liner like this. And for like 3 or 4 years, that is exactly how I lined my eyes. So I'm versed in how to use this. I knew what to do. I had the proper tools. I have a really awesome Real Technique like silicone tip brush that I like to use because it's easier to apply. I also have like an angled liner brush. So I originally pulled out my Real Techniques to use with this, and it was super difficult to apply. I kept finding that with the silicone and this formula that it wasn't laying it down opaquely. So then I decided to grab a angled liner brush, and I used that, and I was still having a bit of trouble. It was a lot of fussing. It was a lot of fussing to get this to apply. Once it was on though, I did like the look of it. I liked the finish. I thought it was really sharp looking compared to my felt liner. Like, I just thought it popped a bit more on my eyes. So I was kind of like, I don't know, do I want to fuss with this? I don't know, let's just see how it plays out. Well then, it just bled everywhere all day. I don't have super watery eyes. Sometimes when it's like really windy out or really cold out, because I do have dry eyes, I tend to overcompensate with my eyes getting watery, but it doesn't happen very often. It's like, I don't know, once a month maybe it happens. And on this particular day, that happened. And so I had a little bit of like water tears coming out of the corner of my eye, which I like very gently patted and like cleaned up. But I noticed, partly because I have hooded eyes, that because it made the very corner a little bit damp, that as I blinked, even though I had tried to get all of the, water out, that as I blinked, it was transferring the liner to the top of my lid. It just does not hold up. It is not durable under, very easy conditions. So for all of those reasons, I was like, nope, this is certainly not re-entering my makeup collection, and it's not something that I actually want to work on. It did make me wonder if I would like a potted gel liner like this again, but I'm not even going there until I make a significant dent in either the felt tip liners that I have or the pencil liners that I have. So we're talking like easily a year from now, but this stuff, save your money, because it is certainly not worth the high price tag. On top of all the other makeup that I wanted to assess, an additional category that I have for 2020 was blushes. It's a really hard category for me to work on because I am such a creature of habit that it's easier for me just to grab the same blush over and over again. So I made a concerted effort on the past few weekends in 2020 to start to look particularly at my cream blushes, because I felt like those would be the most prone to expire over my powder blushes. Powder products in general have a longer shelf life than liquid or cream products. So I did that, and the results weren't great. The first one that I totally regret getting is the Peri Para Cushion Blusher in the shade Lively Lavender. I would not consider this a lavender color. I'm surprised they called it that. The packaging is super adorable. I distinctly remember like saving up Birchbox points 100 years ago to get this. And I have to say, I don't love the applicator. I find it really hard to get product out because I don't apply this straight to my cheeks. I have found through too many fails of doing that it just doesn't apply effectively for any cream blush, not just this one. So I'd have to like really squeeze it and either like press it onto my hand and then pat it, or use a stippling brush onto my face, or like squeeze it onto my little plastic elf heart that I have that I sometimes put foundation stuff on. But I found with this that I didn't love the coloring. It's too like baby doll pink. I'll show you a swatch of it. This is really like an intense swatch of it, but it is like a very baby doll pink color. And I found that when I was first applying it, like you can see here, after I like blended it out, it almost kind of disappeared. So then I put a second layer on, and then it still wasn't really popping, and then I put like a little tiny bit more, and all of a sudden I had doll cheeks. Like I was like, this escalated so quickly, how did this happen? Like a second ago it wasn't there. And I also was noticing that it was sort of moving my foundation. So for all of those reasons, I have decided that this is just not going to work for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it and admit my faults for getting it. Then there is the Dandelion Dew from Benefit. This is the Soft Baby Pink Radiance for Cheeks. I just felt like this stuff just isn't a great like coloring. Again, the swatch that I'm going to show you is really aggressive in its color tone. You can see it here. But I just feel like it's too like light, and it's too like almost like glossy on my face. I don't really like the look of a glossy cheek because to me that looks kind of like sweaty and not great with the rest of your foundation. So for that reason and the way it blended out, I was not compelled to want to use this sample or to buy a full-size product. Last two cream blushes that I'm saying goodbye to, I am shocked by because I distinctly recall loving these when I first got them. These are the NYX Whipped lip and cheek products. This is in Pink Cloud, and this one is in Plush. I recall liking Plush more on me than Pink Cloud, but again, as I was going to apply these, like this one, I feel like when you see it, when you see Plush, you're gonna be like, wow, Victoria, why would you get rid of that? Like, I really do like this swatched out, but you can see that it has like this glossy look to it, and I just don't really love a glossy look on my cheeks. And so then I thought like, well, if I like the colors enough, I can try them on my lips. Oh God, these were super like drying and soul sucking on my lips. Again, maybe they've gone bad and that's why they were so terrible. I think these are from like, I think 3 years ago. So probably beyond its shelf life, but they just didn't really work for me. And I'm kind of sort of swearing off cream products for a long time because I just don't think I like the finish of them on my face at this point in time. Final category of items today to talk about are brushes. I did a really good job last summer scrutinizing my brushes, I thought, and then I was staring at them one day and I was like, you definitely don't need all of these brushes. It was a lot easier for me to scrutinize my face brushes than it was my eye brushes. I still have too many of them, but I justify them because I'm like, no, they all have different purposes and they all have a place in the world and I need them all. So I don't really have that many eye brushes, but I've got a number of face brushes to share with you that I am just totally regretful of buying. So the first one is really a set of brushes. These were the Wet n Wild like silver handle original like Christmas. I think it was 3 Christmases ago. They came out with a brush set like this. It was like 20 brushes. They were $10. Plus I had a coupon, so it was super cheap. I'm pretty sure I have decluttered all but one of them for various reasons, but this one is going along with my Moda Pro chisel brush and this angled kabuki brush from brand I don't know, because I don't contour, I don't chisel my face, I don't do any of those steps. I have thought for a while that I would be a girl who would try it, and I have no interest in trying it. I am all set there. So I don't need these 3 brushes, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of them, and seriously wish I had not bought this Wet n Wild set because I have gotten rid of 90% of those brushes. I also have this Chloe brush. It came in a set that I was given, and this is the angled contour. Again, I don't do any kind of contouring, and I thought about trying this in alternative ways. It's maybe like a blush brush, but I have other blush brushes that I like that I don't need to keep this one around unnecessarily. Speaking of Wet n Wild, I have yet another one from that collection, which is this, I guess, powder brush. I have tried this in a various number of ways. I have tried it for setting powder, don't really like it for that. I've tried it for blush. It is not better than any of the other blush brushes that I have. I find that with all the Wet n Wild brushes that I've had, even though I've cleaned them a ton of times, they have always remained stained. I don't love that. So I don't really have a purpose for this, so it's out of here. I've also got this e.l.f. 107 brush. I don't know what I was thinking when I bought this, because again, it doesn't really work for setting powder because it doesn't quite pick up setting powder in a way that is super helpful. It's way too big on my face for a highlighting brush. It's not a blush brush. Like, it doesn't really serve any purpose in my current routine. So I don't know why I bought it. I don't know what I was thinking I would accomplish with this, but it just is not jiving with me. Oh, look. Another one of those Wet n Wild brushes. This was supposed to be a highlighter brush, but it just is way too like poofed out. I don't have, maybe because I have a small, I don't know if I have a small face, maybe I have a small face. I just feel like this was way too like thick of an amount of highlight that it was putting on my face, and it wouldn't really like blend it out, and it just didn't really have any other purpose if it wasn't going to be used for highlighting. So it's also out of here, and I think at this point the only one of these, if I'm looking at my collection, I think the only one that has survived is one of the blush brushes that came in the kit, but it's like a very unique shape, and I go through phases where I like how it like presses the blush on my face, but aside from that, none of the other ones are still in my collection. I randomly have this. This is one of the MUA crease brushes. I don't know where the top of it went, but I just had the handle, the ferrule, like in my cup, so throwing this away. This was the cargo brush that came in my eyeshadow palette. I gotta say, I really have been a fan in the last 2 years of companies choosing to no longer put brushes in with their palettes, because I have found that 80% of the brushes I've gotten in eyeshadow palettes, I just don't think are well made. I really dislike double-ended brushes because inevitably the way I store my brushes, one of them is going to get smushed. But like, I don't quite understand the thought and intention of this brush, because this basically is a flat shader brush, which is great for putting it onto my lid. But like, what is this guy? You can't really blend out with him, and I can pack it into my outer corner, but I feel like this brush could easily do that too, that this side was really neglected and should have been more of like a blending brush or an angled brush, like something better than this. But the actual bristles aren't that soft and kind of scratchy, so this is out of here. I've also got 2 of these Luxie brushes. I like Luxie brushes, but these travel size ones, it's a nice thought, but I'm not somebody who thinks to myself like, oh God, if only my brushes were smaller and I could travel with them. Wouldn't that be better? No, I just bring my regular size brushes, so these never get used, and they're never something that I want to pull for. I'd rather just use the regular brushes that are at a longer length that I'm accustomed to using. So for this reason, I regret I am all done with these. They're out of here. All right, guys, that was a huge dent of products that I managed to part with and express my regrets and reasoning for why I would not purchase them again. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on these, and I will talk to you in my next video real soon. Bye.